Good morning, Europe. It's Monday, the 21st of February. A very warm welcome to the programme. Let's start by looking at our top stories.
US President Joe Biden and Russia's Vladimir Putin agree in principle to hold talks on de-escalating the crisis in Ukraine. Well wishes pour in for Britain's Queen Elizabeth after she tests positive for COVID-19. But the UK government says it's going ahead with plans to remove more pandemic restrictions. And built to protect the Roman Empire 1900 years ago, Hadrian's Wall is once again under attack, this time from climate change.
The decision by Russia and Belarus to extend joint military drills, which were supposed to end on Sunday, have raised fears that Moscow could be moving closer to launching an invasion of Ukraine. The exercises have brought an estimated 30,000 Russian troops into Belarus on the border with its neighbour. On Sunday night, US President Joe Biden convened the National Security Council at the White House. No statement was offered, but Biden and his advisers continue to warn that Russia is poised to attack Ukraine, something Moscow denies. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron has made a last-minute diplomatic bid in a telephone call with President Vladimir Putin, who is said to have agreed to prioritise a diplomatic solution. In a second call, a Putin-Biden summit is also said to be on the cards, but Putin continues to blame the Ukrainian military for an escalation of tensions in the disputed east of Ukraine. A statement issued by the Kremlin said, considering the current state of affairs, the two presidents found it expedient to step up the search for a diplomatic solution between the foreign ministers and political advisers to the leaders of the Normandy format countries. The statement went on to say these meetings help restore the ceasefire and ensure progress in settling the conflict around Donbass. Russian-backed rebels and Ukrainian government forces have accused each other of instigating clashes in the east, which have intensified in recent days. Poland, which currently holds the chairmanship for the Organisation for Security and Cooperation, is convening an extraordinary session to find ways to de-escalate the situation. Meanwhile, as dozens of civilians continue to be evacuated from the separatist-run territories, Ukrainian forces say they have orders not to return fire from the rebels, claiming Russia is looking for any excuse to invade.
The Organisation for Security and Cooperation in Europe calls for an extraordinary meeting on Monday to find ways to de-escalate the situation in Ukraine and at the country's borders. Over the past weekend, it has deteriorated badly, with shellings and ceasefire violations in the east of Ukraine, where the so-called Donetsk People's Republic and Luhansk People's Republic, the self-proclaimed territories, continued the mass evacuation of citizens to Russia. Ukraine insists it has no plans for any offensive operation in the east of the country or anywhere else, and saying Kyiv is only seeking a diplomatic solution. Western leaders stand by their warnings that the attack could be imminent. Joe Biden said he is now convinced that Russian President Vladimir Putin made a decision to invade Ukraine. And amid these heightened fears and warnings, Ukraine commemorated the 8th anniversary of the pro-European Maidan Revolution, paying tribute to the Heavenly Hundred. Over 100 people killed here in central Kiev in 2014 during Ukraine's Revolution of Dignity. Sasha Vakulina, Euronews, Kyiv.
Now to Germany, where the annual Munich Security Conference has been taking place over the weekend. Tensions between Russia and Ukraine were topped the list of things to discuss at the three-day event. Euronews reporter Kate Brady has more from Berlin.
The three-day Munich Security Conference really couldn't have come at a more critical moment. NATO allies and EU leaders were all keen again to underline their commitment to transatlantic solidarity in their coordination in trying to resolve the crisis at the Ukrainian-Russian border through diplomatic means. But of course there was a notable absence at the conference, Russian President Vladimir Putin or any other high-ranking Russian representative. During the conference, German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock did once again again defend Germany's position to not export defence weapons to Ukraine. Germany's historic responsibility, she said, means that Germany cannot send weapons directly into a conflict zone. Ukraine's President Zelensky also gave a passionate speech at the forum, saying that Ukraine did indeed appreciate any help, but that any leader should also understand that this help, whether it's weapons or helmets, is not a charitable contribution, but he said a contribution to the security of Europe and the world. So certainly a reminder that's going to be ringing in the ears of leaders on both sides of the Atlantic as we head into this new week. Kate Brady, Euronews, Berlin.
I'm here.
News that Britain's Queen Elizabeth has tested positive for COVID-19 has prompted concerns for the stoic 95-year-old and get well wishes across the country. The much-respected monarch, who has been fully vaccinated, is said to be experiencing mild cold-like symptoms, but is expected to continue with light duties at Windsor Castle. Members of the public, as well as political leaders including Prime Minister Boris Johnson and the leader of the main opposition Labour Party, Keir Starmer, have sent messages of support.
Well, I'm hoping that she's fine and she doesn't have really awful symptoms, and hopefully it will just pass by fast. I mean, everyone had it at some point, so she was bound to get it, but hopefully it's fine.
Well, as long as she's going to be fine, then, and she's not with everybody else and she's handling it, then I guess it's hard not to get it at this time. A lot of people has had it, and it's really hard not to. So I guess as long as she's not going to be seriously ill, then it's going to be fine.
Queen Elizabeth is Britain's longest-serving monarch. 2022 is meant to be a banner year of Platinum Jubilee celebrations. But the news comes at a stressful time for her, with scandals stalking her two eldest sons, Charles and Andrew.
As the world reacts to the Queen testing positive, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is expected to announce the end of all remaining COVID-19 restrictions. Britain is to become the first major European country to allow people who are infected to freely use shops, public transport and go to work, as Tyke Enright reports from London.
Today in England, we're learning about the beginning of the end of pandemic restrictions. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is announcing a living with COVID plan, which, among other things, will end the legal requirement to self-isolate if you test positive. So people who know they have the virus can choose whether to stay at home and away from others. The government says we can now rely on vaccines, testing and new treatments to keep people safe. But free of charge testing will also come to an end. It's something that will be celebrated by opponents of lockdown rules, particularly within the Prime Minister's Conservative Party. But it's been questioned by others about its timing. Other jurisdictions are also relaxing COVID restrictions, but not to the same extent. The opposition Labour Party has described it as declaring victory before the war is over, and questioned whether it's designed to move the news agenda on from the scandal over lockdown parties in Downing Street. The British Medical Association has described it as premature, not based on current evidence, and warned it could lead to a surge in cases. Tyke Enright, Euronews in London.
International tourists are now allowed into Australia with fewer restrictions for the first time in almost 2 years. Vaccinated travellers were greeted at Sydney's airport by family members and some waving koalas. The government has finally lifted some of the most draconian pandemic measures of any democracy in the world.
My story is I live in Canada and my parents live here, so I haven't been able to visit since just before COVID, so I'm coming back for a family visit.
Others were returning for long delayed weddings.
Oh my gosh, how many times have we tried this? So many times, and the fact that you guys opened up just in time, literally 3 days before the wedding, is unbelievable. So the moment it was announced, we booked it, came out here, and it's just unbelievably, it's surreal. I don't know, I'm losing my mind right now.
Australia's largest state, that of Western Australia, is finally set to allow tourists, family visitors and business travellers from the 3rd of March.